Sarah Galloy. Welcome to In Her Era.
Nice to meet you, Monique. Finally.
Yeah. I have been very excited for this episode. Most people probably know the story. So I thought I had bacterial vaginosis for 2 months. I had all the signs, I had all the symptoms. And so on my rampage and Googling, because I had never even known, as a health practitioner, I still didn't even know what bacterial vaginosis was. I went rampage on Google and I found your products, and I think I bought the whole line. I bought the wash, I bought the probiotic suppositories, I bought everything. And then turns out I left my menstrual cup in my vagina for 2 months, which is crazy, and the doctor didn't even find it. But what I realized is not many people know about bacterial vaginosis. They don't know about how to take care of their vagina, because I didn't even know. So that's why I wanted you to come on today.
Well, let me tell you that this story, first of all, it happened to me. The
Really?
exact same. Well, it wasn't a cup because that was, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, and it was a tampon.
Which is even worse.
Which is even worse. But you know, when I listened to your episode, when you talk about like this like sort of weird smell coming out of nowhere, it kind of jog my memory back, and I do remember being on a tube in London and I had this horrible smell coming, and you think, oh my god, it's probably a homeless person behind me, so I never really pay attention. I'm like, yeah, whatever, just the tube in London, gross, yuck. And then a couple of days later, again, the same smell, and that's when I sort of thought, okay, maybe this is coming for me. Like, what's going on? It's because it's such a weird, pungent smell that you never smelled before. Mm-hmm. And a few days goes by, trying to look for something inside my vagina. I can't see, can't feel anything. I asked my boyfriend, Sam, he cannot, with his fingers, he can have a look. Yeah. Cannot find anything. And it goes by 2 weeks. And finally, I sort of I sort of squatted and pushed, like as if, as a woman, I feel the need to push. Yes. And as I pushed with my finger, I sort of felt a little string. And I was like, oh my God, there's a tampon in there. And the tampon was actually like this, really.
So on the side?
Yeah. I probably had sex with my partner with the tampon, realizing, and he must have pushed it up. Oh my God. And it went sideways. So I just did like what any women do at some point. You squat and you push, and then slowly, the tampon.
You pushed out a tampon?
You just push, and then I grabbed it, and then I removed it.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was vile. It was absolutely vile. I swear to you, since that day, never, ever I will forget a tampon.
Yeah, for sure. I was even like, I'm not putting anything up there again. I was like, I am period undies all the way from now on.
No, for me, same. I just like to let it flow, So I'm totally with you, and I think it happens to a lot of women.
Yeah, and I feel like, I felt so much more validated when I went onto Reddit, of all places, and like 90 women were like, oh, me too. I left my disc in there, and my gynecologist was like, what's this blue thing?
Oh my God.
Like crazy.
No,
there
you go.
Yeah. So I would love to take us back to how you even started your brand, because you have this beautiful line of intimate products and vaginal health products, but you didn't even start in clinical. You were in corporate.
Oh, yeah, completely. Like I was an EA. I was a terrible EA, very forgetful. And so I always knew I needed to have my own business, that's for sure. Like EA was not like career for me. So I was working as an EA, and I kind of had recurrent vaginal health issue, like throughout my whole life, essentially. But it sort of accumulated with my ex-partner. And with him in particular, I was constantly having yeast infection and BV, like literally all the time. Every time we would have sex, it was either yeast infection, BV, or the both together. It was nonstop. So I was at the doctor all the time, and I just heard the most random diagnostic, there is to hear, essentially, from putting a tampon with yogurt inside of me, to try meditation, to do a full candida diet, as in removing any type of sugar. And I remember telling this particular doctor, I was like, well, I'm not against doing this candida diet because I can see like the purpose of it. Yeah. I was like, how can you explain that my ex, well, there's a lot of ex in those stories, but my ex was an Italian man, and I used to eat pasta literally every day. Eat pasta, high carbs diet, and didn't get once a single yeast infection. So I was a bit like dubious of that candida diet to treat my vaginal yeast infection. But anyway, I went out with it. I went out with everything, all the traditional sort of medicine, and nothing worked. So one gynecologist, she mentioned to me boric acid. And so I went online and I looked for it. And in Australia, there was only one person who was selling this product, or you need to buy it from the US, which I did. But the gynecologist told me, try the antibiotics. And if it doesn't work, just try boric acid. So I didn't go for the antibiotics. Yes. So I just went straight for the boric acid because I knew the antibiotics doesn't work. And yeah, the boric acid works really well. And I think that's when I sort of learned about why certain antibiotics doesn't work, why there's a biofilm that gets created, the vaginal microbiome, the importance of lactobacillus, so I sort of like dive into that whole aspect of vaginal health, which I had absolutely no clue.
Which I feel like most women don't, though.
Yeah. Most women don't.
And I think what I also love about your product is it is that whole encompassing of vaginal health, not just like treating thrush or not just treating bacterial vaginosis. And it's also that education piece, which I love, and you really, really champion that. We talk about gut health, we talk about hormone health, but vaginal health is so missed, I think. So if we talk about, the vaginal microbiome, everyone knows what the gut microbiome is, but what is the vaginal microbiome?
Well, the vaginal microbiome, the best way to explain it, and that's a gynecologist who told me this when I had my first visit as a teenager, it's like a yogurt, essentially. So you have like colony of bacteria inside the vagina, but the gut microbiome, you want a lot of diversity inside, but for the vagina, you just want one or two type, like the lactobacillus, which they create lactic acid and keep your vagina slightly acidic. So the good range is between 3.5 to 4.5 on the pH scale. And so when you have your vagina that's acidic, it kind of keep all the bad bacteria at bay. Yeah. However, when you have your period is a lot more alkaline, so that can create disruption. So it's not unusual for women to have some sort of like sign of BV just after the period. We can have like a bit of a fishy smell, and usually the vagina will then rebalance itself, with the good bacteria that just comes back into play. Same when you have sex with your partner and it ejaculate inside, the semen is alkaline, so that can also disrupt your vaginal microbiome. But for women who have a compromise of microbiome of vaginal dysbiosis, they don't get that good lactobacillus to create that protective environment, and so they're a lot more prone to infection. Obviously, when you use antibiotics, there's a biofilm that can create around the bacteria. Same with the IUD, actually. You can have, the biofilm that can create around the string of the IUD, which means the bacteria gets sticky there, and antibiotics cannot penetrate to kill the bacteria. So there's a lot of elements that can disrupt your vaginal microbiome, your hormones when you're perimenopausal. But usually when you're a healthy person with a healthy level of lactobacillus, you can just bounce back to your normal balance. But when you're not, that's when the dysbiosis happen and you're more prone to recurrent infection that can happen every month, depending on, your period, sex, hormones, and so forth.
So when you talked about symptoms, so women might be like, oh, but what's BV? Or what signs do I look out for to know that my vagina's a little bit more alkaline, or it's not the right pH, or what are they looking out for in symptoms?
Well, essentially, like BV stands for bacterial vaginosis, and it's a bacteria called Gardnerella, which is the main sort of bacteria responsible for BV. And really, the main symptoms is a sort of like watery discharge. So there's not like a clumpy white discharge where you find with a yeast infection. So it's very watery. There's usually a foul smell, like very fishy, but not always. Like many women actually have bacterial vaginosis, and there's like literally no symptoms, which it is hard then to detect. That how would you know?
Yeah.
I remember from my own experience, like especially when you have sex, it's just a weird sensation between your own sort of fluids when you have BV mixed with your own fluid when you have sex, it's just like a weird feeling inside your vagina that you can feel like it's a bit raw. There's an odd sensation. So I would say this is for BV. For yeast infection, so for thrush, so the main yeast is a Candida albicans, but you have like all different type of Candida, and this is an overgrowth yeast. It's not really related to the pH balance like BV is. That's more when there's not enough lactobacillus that then the yeast take over and just like create an overgrowth. And you could just have both. You could have BV and yeast at the same time. And usually what you find for women who suffer from BV with the normal sort of treatment, which is to take antibiotics, then when you take antibiotics, it wipes out everything, including the good bacteria that you need, and then you end up with a thrush afterwards.
It's so funny you say that, because when I went to the doctor thinking that I had BV, and she was like, you're coming up negative, because clearly it was my menstrual cup causing this awful discharging and this awful smell. She was like, but we'll take antibiotics for it if it's not going away, and then you might need to take something for thrush, because it's highly likely that you're going to get thrush after this. And so obviously, being a functional health practitioner, antibiotics has its place, but for me, I am very cautious and see it as, in my position, especially because I have a sensitive gut, I know what it does to your entire microbiome. It's almost like the atomic bomb. It doesn't selectively choose the bad bacteria. It's just like, let's just weed kill everything. So what I always like to do is try and find the natural source. I think a lot of the time with antibiotics, why do you think it doesn't work? It's like that biofilm that you said, and because it wipes out the entire species?
Yeah, so essentially there is this biofilm that's really hard to destroy, and the antibiotics cannot destroy the biofilm. So that's one element. Also, that doesn't like really treat the root cause of the issue. You know, the root cause of the issue is the lack of good lactobacillus. That's the root cause of the issue. So when you increase those good bacteria, then you will be able to fend off better those, infection.
I think it's really funny, because the way I treat the gut is also the way the microbiome of the vagina is kind of treated. It's feeding up the good bacteria so that you can push out the negative. And especially when you're meant to only have a few species down there, not this diverse population. But I know that so many women get this reoccurring bacterial vaginosis or reoccurring vaginal health issues. What are then some of the causes of why women can get it? We've talked about, you said hormones. Obviously, from a gut perspective, there's a gut-vaginal link. But what other things that maybe women are doing day to day?
Well, I have a big one, the partner. So now in last March 2025, finally, someone into the medical field, after doing, 12 years of study, have decided to test the penile skin of men. So essentially, like prior, bacterial vaginosis was not considered as an STI, STD, because it was just an imbalance of your vaginal microbiome, essentially. But now they have discovered that the bacteria live on the skin of the foreskin of men. But when we give antibiotics, there's still that bacteria that can live inside the penile skin, or the foreskin, essentially.
The skin of the penis.
Okay, the skin of the penis. I'm not going to try to come up with
scientific names.
The skin of the penis with an aubergine sign. And so what really have to happen is that men has to take antibiotics, but also topical antibiotics to be able to kill that bacteria, but they don't have any symptoms. And this is the most critical part. So you could get treated for BV yourself, but if your partner have that bacteria of BV living on his on the skin of his penis, then he's going to give you BV all the time, and you get reinfected, over and over again. Things that can happen on sex toys, for example.
I didn't even think about that.
Well, I guess the bacteria, you need to wash it, otherwise they can just like live there. If you're from a lesbian or same-sex relationship, then again, you can pass it from your partner. So it is like a borderline between an STI, but, I think now slowly, the medical body is coming to realizing this probably should be classified as an STI, but it's still on the curve. But when you're in a relationship and if you if you keep on getting BV, that you might want to check your partner.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so it can definitely reinfect. So when you were saying that he could have this bacterial infection. So the penis has its own microbiome?
Yeah, so the penis has its own microbiome. I mean, the pH is sort of neutral, but there is a lot of like bacteria that just live even under like on normal skin. So when you introduce those bacteria inside your vagina, because the vagina is like a moist environment, then obviously everything sort of, like the yogurt, everything sort of like, grow. And, so then the men introduce bacteria, there's the friction, there's germs. So it's not to say that, men who aren't circumcised are unclean. That's not the point. It's just, it's not their fault. It's just the bacteria that live on the skin. But, when you put this inside the vagina, then that can create like an environment less beneficial for us if we don't have a strong microbiome. I mean, some women just never experience, not one issue their whole life. So, yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because one of my friends, again, not really talked about until I was like, I think I have BV. She said the reason why I got it and the reason why I found out I got it is because my partner had been cheating on me.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, it could be, but I wouldn't not necessarily not say that.
Yeah.
But what I would suggest is like, if you suspect that you have BV and you go through treatment, then use protective, like a condom when you have sex, just to rule out that it is your partner. And if you then have sex again and then you end up with BV again, and say, okay, maybe it's him who needs to get treated not only with normal antibiotics, but also like topical antibiotics. Because there is some study that shows that men who are circumcised are less likely to have BV and infection in general. So that's sort of like corroborates the fact that those bacteria sort of like lives inside that skin.
You also said something about IUDs, which I think a lot of people wouldn't realize. So there is research, and I actually saw it on one of your posts as well, that IUDs can actually cause bacterial vaginosis?
Yeah, completely. So the IUD has this sort of, it creates like an inflammation inside the vagina. So there's like different type of bacteria that will just overgrow. And again, this horrible biofilm that is on the string of the IUD. And yes, women who have IUD are more prone to BV and infection in general.
So if a woman maybe gets this reoccurring bacterial vaginosis or reoccurring vaginal issues, we've talked about partners, but is there anything else that she might have to look out for, that she's thinking like, why do I get this? I get it with maybe an IUD, which comes into the play, but is there anything she can do to support that?
Well, I would suggest to start journaling, what trigger the episode of BV, because is it related to a hormone, a lifestyle, sex, after her periods? Because when you sort of journaling and you realize like what is the trigger, then you can just like recognize the pattern, and you'll be able to sort of, create a plan, whether it's a lifestyle changes, getting your partner tested, or is it something linked to your hormones, be able to pinpoint where the issue are coming from.
And then also your products would come into play.
Yeah, obviously that helps. It's not like a prevention. It's more kind of a plan of attack when you do have an episode. But for me, like the whole plan is like for you not to have something.
Yes.
So obviously the probiotics really help to repopulate that good bacteria, but your diet is really important as well. Your lifestyle also is really important. Your stress level, your hormones, everything is into play essentially, because the body is kind of a holistic, being. So the product really help, but then it's also like recognizing those patterns. So then you can just like have more preventative approach.
Yeah, I also think, with vaginal health in general, it is more of that holistic lens. I think you can't treat one area of the body just by like, sticking probiotic up there. That would be the easiest thing we wish we could do. But it's that in accumulation with, supporting your gut microbiome and your gut health, with supporting your hormone health. Stress has a huge link to vaginal microbiome health. So I think with anything in health, it's never just like a quick fix. It's always looking at, the body so holistically. Is that how you were able to support and heal yours?
100%. So it's just changing the diet. So trying to eat a probiotic rich foods. And I did realize, because for me, I was like, I don't want to eat like yogurt. I'm just like intolerant. I was like trying to like navigate with my intolerance with all the things. But, kefir, sauerkraut, there's just a lot of way to eat, like kimchi. I love kimchi, like probiotic rich food. And I must say, like for the last 4 years, I think I've had one episode of a thrush, like a slide, but that was because I was on antibiotics, for a recurrent, this is another story, for a recurrent UTI that I had for 3 months.
Oh no.
But it sort of like went away really quickly, the yeast infection. So, but I did not have one single episode of BV for the last, 4 or 5 years.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm BV free.
When you talked about, because you said one of your main reasons also was the partner and the partner you had and potentially could have been his penile microbiome.
Completely. It was his penile microbiome. Like we can name and shame. That's totally fine.
When we talk about sex in general and it's changing the alkaline, like if you ejaculate in someone's body and it changes the alkaline of a female, how do women support it if they're with their partner?
Well, this is the problem, because usually, like if you have a really good, strong vaginal microbiome, even if you have ejaculative sex, that's fine, because the vagina will sort of like rebalance itself, like you may have, maybe a funny smell for 1 or 2 days, and then, like the good bacteria is going to take over and all is well. But if you don't, then yes, you can just be prone to have those episodes of BV. And I do recommend sometimes we can just use like a one-off of the boric acid gel or the probiotics, just to sort of like give a little bit of extra help. That makes sense, just like as a one-off. But, I wouldn't advise as every month or every week or I don't know how many times you have sex. Don't just do it all the time. Like this is not like obviously a good plan of action.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So it's like trying to obviously support your body holistically from that preventative stance. But if your body is like more prone or you're kind of coming in with a little bit of extra support.
Oh, actually, this is something completely crazy, because I'm always like on the lookout for, news in the sexual wellness. There's someone who has invented an aspirator for semen. So there's this little device that you just stuck inside and it's sort of like sucking the semen. Because women...
What, in a woman's... You put it in
in a woman's vagina. It's like a little mini vacuum. It's like a vacuum.
A mini vacuum. And you put it inside before you have sex?
After.
Oh, and you suck all the semen out.
Exactly.
Stop it!
I swear. I'm just like, this is insane. It's like a mini vacuum and they just go inside and then take it all out.
Are they using it for like preventing... pregnancy, or just like surely not, because it's like once it goes up, once it's shot up, it's
you still have the sperm that just go through, like conics. But I think the lady who invented this, it was more sort of, do you know that feeling when it's sort of leak and it's annoying and it's sort of like come out like, sometime after and it's not really, nice, and you can just like vacuum it out.
That is the funniest thing. What about women when we shower? What I learnt when I was going through this is like washing ourselves. Sometimes our soaps can disrupt the pH.
Yeah, completely. I mean, because, obviously you have the entrance of the vagina. Obviously the vagina itself is self-cleaning, so you should never douche or put any soap. But sometimes you can have maybe a little bit of soap that has entered, and that can sort of like create, a bad recipe and, for disaster inside. But obviously your vulva, so, on the outside and on the skin, then yes, for sure you can just wash it with a very gentle, wash. I saw a lot of hate online where women say, you should not wash there, just don't do anything. I'm just like, it's like any area of your skin, of your body. Like you can't say, no, I don't have to wash my vulva.
Yeah.
Because you sweat, there's stuff that can, I don't know, it's just like your armpit or anything. It's just not the inside of your vagina. For sure, your vagina, do not wash it, do not douche it. But the outside, I would be very worried if this woman just doesn't wash her vulva. So
do you remember like everyone's like, oh, if you can't have a quick shower, just do your pits and bits? Everyone knows you gotta it gets sweaty down there, like you gotta.
And not to mention that a lot of UTI, like the reason why you have UTI is because you can have bacteria that just enter through your urethra and that cause UTI. So I would highly suggest women to wash their vulva.
And you have such a beautiful wash, which is more designed for like it balances the pH, it's pH supportive.
Yeah, one is with boric acid, so it has a mild antibacterial effect, which is good like after sex. So when you have thrush and BV or when you're prone to this, and it also like remove all smell. And then the second one is a probiotic, and this is more for sensitive clients who just doesn't want any sort of the effect of the boric acid. But everything is always unscented. Like apart from the oil, who's just with an rose essential oil, everything's unscented because I just don't want anything to disrupt, the vaginal health.
And then you said undies. What underwear should I be wearing to support my vagina?
Cotton or bamboo
is better.
Yeah, because it's just like synthetic, sort of trap the moisture, make you sweat more. And bamboo and cotton, this sort of like natural fiber, they let it breathe. The bamboo has a bit of antibacterial effect. So it's a better choice when you're prone to BV and thrush.
Oh my gosh, I love this. I feel like we're getting a vaginal health 101. And it's just like we were never taught this ever. You're never taught this in school. We're never taught this in sex ed, which is like, and I think it's basic knowledge that I think I really wish so many people taught, which is why I obviously was like, Sarah, please come on. I also think, vaginal health is so taboo, and you and I love talking about this topic and being the biggest advocate for disbanding a lot of taboo around vaginal health. Do you still feel like in your work and the women that you've come in contact with that vaginal health is still a sensitive topic and it's embarrassing?
100%, 100%. Like customer, even when they send me message, they say, oh, I'm embarrassed to talk about this to my partner, or I'm embarrassed to talk about this to my doctor. So it's even to me sometimes, although I speak about vagina literally all day, they say, oh, I'm just embarrassed to tell you this, but X, Y, Z. So yeah, it is essentially like still very taboo. And I see this when I talk about like my brand to, whether it's other business owner or anyone else like in my environment, people are always taking back. They're like, they just don't know what to say. They're like, okay, well, this is such a niche. They always think it's a bit... It's not like snake oil, but, kind of it's strange.
Yeah.
It's a bit, when people who just launch those oil for beard or an anal bleaching, that sort of business.
Yes.
And I'm just like, this is nothing and no offense to those businesses, but that's completely different. Vaginal health is something that women experience from the moment they have their first period to their last hot flash, and everything in between is all linked to vaginal health, your fertility, when you're going to get pregnant, when you're in perimenopause, there's so much that's linked to your vaginal health that women doesn't realize. Same when you're trying to conceive, having a good vaginal microbiome will help you with the sperm motility, for example. When you have BV, there's more issue with fertility as well. So everything is linked.
And what I find really fascinating about it is it's like women, even women that I'm close with, they don't talk about it unless you do.
Because there's a shame.
It is so much shame. Is there any like stories that you've heard or from your clients that have been, beautiful stories?
Well, I think the most compelling story is a customer who told me that by using the product, she regained all her confidence back and she's been able to have sex with a partner. And she was so thankful to have created the brand. And I know that, when you have those issues, like it really chip away at your self-esteem, massively, because you wake up every day and you think, okay, why do I have this discharge? Like, why do I have this smell? Like, what's going on? You don't want to have sex, like, let alone oral sex or anything. Like, you just don't feel sexy. You don't want your partner to touch you. And be able to regain your confidence and your self-esteem, like, it's just like really powerful. Yeah.
I know firsthand, obviously I haven't had reoccurring BV and I haven't had the full BV, obviously. But when I had that awful smell, I was like, every time, because we still would want to have sex. And so we would have sex and I would be like, finish fast, like go as fast as you can, which is like, it's not ideal scenario for anybody. But I knew that if it was like the longer I waited, like the smell would get worse and worse, the longer we kept going. And I was like, we just need to like bang it out basically, which I would hate for women to feel that way. And so I knew how it affected us sexually and myself sexually just for that short period of time. So I can't imagine women that would struggle with it for so many years but also not talk about it.
Yeah, but also there's also the men, the issue is like, throughout my life, I've heard a lot of story of men talking about women, talking about how women look, how she smell. I heard like horrible story that they were relating to their girlfriends or to the girl that they had slept with. And even like a couple of days ago, I had someone, I don't know, there's this guy on Pinc Wellness Instagram who like started send me a message, and he said, oh, yes, well, thank you for the work that you do, because I had a girlfriend, she stank down there. And he went on to tell this horrible story. Say, I flew to Paris to see her, and I had to tell her to take another shower, but oh my God, like the smell was horrible. And I was just like, I didn't know what to say to him. I was like, okay, well, thank you for the detail, but this type of comment is why women feel bad, because you're telling me this to me, which is fine. But if you related that story to someone and that person has BV and feel bad, she's going to feel even worse. And this is why women, we feel embarrassed to talk about our issue, because this sort of behavior that we hear from men, where they make comments about how the vaginal look, or what type of vulva do you have, or the smell, or, how does it feel to have sex with this person or that person.
Yeah.
And because we hear this when they talk amongst themselves, then we feel kind of shameful if we feel like, oh my God, this could be me, essentially.
Oh, that breaks my heart. And also, you had so much restraint.
Yeah.
I would have been.
I was looking for the button blocked. I was trying to educate him. I was like, okay, let me educate you a little bit on the subject.
I feel like it's so true, though. And I think for women, you're right. It's not just us and how we feel, but it's also, I think, social media. It's how men talk and projected. In Tasmania, there's Mona, and they've got the Vaginal Wall exhibition, which I think I love so much, because it normalizes what different vulvas look like and how women are all really different. And it breaks my heart. I remember hearing stories of women who were like really young, like 15, 16, wanting to get surgeries on their vulva to change their shape and design because of what is not like quote unquote typical. And I hate the fact that vaginal health, or vaginas in general, or sex in general, has become like so taboo and so stereotyped, or so criticized and critiqued, that it makes women feel ashamed of their bodies, or ashamed of how they quote unquote perform, or ashamed of what their smell looks like, or the amount of discharge, or whether they're dry because they're not producing enough. Oh, and then there's that like whole situation around the myth around sex, and like you get turned on, so you produce more like vaginal discharge, which it's not the case for some women, because like hormonally and cortisol comes to the picture. So it's there's so much misinformation, and I think it's making women feel so ashamed.
Completely. I mean, funnily, on the sexual wellness, I sell some like little lubricant capsules. So it's not something that you can just reapply while you have sex. It's just a little capsule that you insert just before sex, and it sort of melts away. And it's funny how they've been flying off the shelf, because there is this sense of, it's not, I need a lubricant. It's like, okay, maybe I'm using a little pill before sex, and then, we don't really see whether I'm just, it's natural, or I have a little bit of help, essentially.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And it's subtle. Versus like, let's get the lube, and like...
Yeah, because I can still feel women would just maybe feel, okay, I just don't want to... It's a bit, I know it's hard, like, again, because men says, if you're not wet, you're not turned on.
Yes.
And that is not necessarily the case. And so again, these are the false narrative that men's, push onto us, and we feel, okay, oh, I just need to be wet, it's,
Yeah, and then especially then when you hit menopause, perimenopause, like women, because estrogen drops significantly, which means our vaginal, we become drier.
Yeah.
And so that becomes an issue for women as well, which then promotes this whole self-conscious self-esteem
Massively
into the picture as well.
Yeah. Like vaginal dryness, the vagina becomes brittle, like the vaginal wall. Yeah, it's like a whole new world.
Yeah.
And I feel it's very interesting because millennial, we're starting to get into that phase of perimenopause. And I feel like our generation is going to handle menopause like very differently from the previous generation. So that's going to be interesting to see, like the more holistic, the hormone replacement therapy, the peptide that everybody's talking about.
Everyone talking about peptides.
Yeah.
I also think like back in the day, menopause was like so taboo and also not researched a lot, just like women's health was not researched in clinical trials.
But even now, it's not that.
No, hardly.
It hasn't changed that much.
Hardly, especially like menstruating women. Like we're always removed because we're harder to study or we're harder to control in a way in hormonal studies. So every research, every new supplement's always mostly tested on men.
Yeah. And it's embarrassing. Even the watch, something as the Garmin watch, what I'm not wearing today, but all the data are based off a 25-year-old male.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the heart rate, the heat and everything, because I'm just following the work of Stacey Sim, and she's really big into the triathlon sort of era. And she's explaining, like how the data from those watch are all based on like men's data, and it's completely flawed for women, and especially like a 25-year-old woman. But a 45-year-old woman will be completely different, So so she's advocating for like more research.
That is so interesting. And I used to wear a Whoop. I also thought the Whoop was so aggressive. Like it's so like, you suck.
I like it because for me, just my age decreasing. It's like, you 31, Sarah. I'm like, okay, I'll take this.
I love that. I want to dispel some myths that I definitely hear about natural cures for vaginas. So I want to like quick fire a few and see what you think.
Okay.
So I have heard coconut oil in your vagina.
Yes and no. For some women, it's great. But for women who are prone to BV, like I would not recommend to use coconut oil. Yeah.
Because it disrupts the microbiome?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Greek yogurt, like you're in the tampon Greek yogurt.
I mean, in principle, you would think, okay, there's lactobacillus, but I think there's a lot of other stuff. There's probably some sugar, like there's a lot of like weird other, like it's not a real, unless you make your own Greek yogurt at home, I would say maybe yes, do it. But the one that you buy at Kohl's, like, I don't think so, no.
Garlic.
Oh, no. I mean, I see why, because it's an antibacterial, but no, I don't think like using a garlic clove up there. Yeah, no.
I feel like it would burn.
Yeah, no. The smell, like we're talking about this, like even when you have garlic on your hand when you cook it, like
so true. So if our women, just to get really tangible, really strategy, she's got BV, what does she do?
Well, go see your doctor, first and foremost, most important thing. If you're not happy with what your doctor has prescribed, I would suggest to go into a biofilm disruptor. So something like boric acid work really well, calendula suppository work really well. You do that for 7 to 14 days, and then you can just implement some probiotics, vaginal inserted probiotics, because you just want the strain of probiotics to go where you need it. I am a bit dubious of all the probiotics, the oral probiotics. So just use a targeted approach.
And so inserting it up into your vagina. And obviously would be looking at wearing more cotton underwear, washing with like a more pH sensitive wash.
Exactly. So nothing like, don't use like harsh soap. Just, well, I would say also use my product because I know they work really well. But if you, like maybe the Castile soap, like something like very gentle or Cetaphil type of soap. Yeah. That works fine as well.
Perfect. And then obviously we're taking that holistic approach. So we're looking at the gut health, what you're eating, the lifestyle, 100%. The stress. So taking that holistic approach.
Yeah.
If a woman was going to her GP, what would you want her to ask?
Well, do the tests. So do a microbiome test. There is a few in Australia, but I think the one from the US called June Biotest are really good because they're testing a lot of species of Candida that in Australia currently we don't have the the test, like it's pretty limited. Get the microbiome tests, get the STI testing also, because you don't want to rule out, any sort of STI, because some of those symptoms can be mistaken for an STI, and also do the test for the Gardnerella.
Yeah, so the bacterial vaginosis as well. Okay, perfect. If you could leave the women today with one thing, one piece of advice, what would you give her? What would you leave her with?
Advocate for your health. So, we are, as women, when you go to see the doctor, we are very often dismissed about pain, whether we think it's endometriosis, whether it's recurrent vaginal health, whatever that is. Like, I feel like the medical bodies right now, the doctors in general, tend to dismiss our pain. And I think it's very important that we advocate for ourselves. So if something isn't right and you don't feel good in your body, it means that there is definitely something that isn't right. Because when we feel good, we feel fine. But whether it's a pain, whether it's an ache, whether that is, even if it's like hormonal, it's your mental health, then we really need to advocate for yourself, and we need to push to say we need more tests, we need more treatment, even if we hear no from the doctor. No, this is the biggest piece of advice. Just don't take no for an answer from a doctor.
I could not agree more. That is always my biggest piece of advice. I think as women, we don't advocate for, and I'm like such a good girl. Like I was like, oh, they must be right. They must be right. And it wasn't until I basically healed myself naturally after the doctors told me to be like, just take the pill or take this, that I realized that I have to be the biggest advocate, because no one's going to save you but you at the end 100%. Of the day. Sarah, on your table is her file.
Yeah.
So in there are 3 questions that allow us to get to know you a little bit more, the woman behind the brand.
Ooh.
Pick one of the questions that resonate the most with you, and then just answer whatever comes to your head.
Okay, what's the biggest lesson in life you had to learn? Okay. And they're all pretty hard questions. I would say this is probably kind of like personal, because, I come from Belgium. I left Belgium in 2008, and I went to Australia, went to London, lived in Bali, came back to Australia. So there was a lot of travel. And I think one of the hardest lesson is be able to stick to one thing, because I was living in all these different places. I've had a lot of different jobs, a lot of different boyfriends, and I've always felt like I couldn't achieve anything. And it was really sort of wearing down of my self-esteem, because you feel like, okay, all my friends are getting married, they're having kids, they're having all this career. Here I am, I'm 40. I live with my dog. I've never been married, I don't have kids. And I think be able to reclaim this power to think, okay, it's not this life that I have right now. This is my life. It's not the same as anyone else. It's fine. And I think you just had to let go and be able to just let go of that dream, that I've had for many, many years, thinking that I would just get married and have kids and having an amazing career. And my life has been completely different. Obviously now I would not change anything, because everything that I've done throughout my life have led me here, like speaking to you and having this amazing business and all this opportunity. But it took me years, to be able to digest, the disappointment, disappointment of my parents. Even now, my mom, she thinks that she has no idea what I'm doing. My mom, she thinks like, she's sort of, my mom, she's Algerian. She's living in a completely different planet, but she's, I don't know, she probably thinks I'm living in a squat somewhere and I'm just a lost cause, because, no, seriously. So living with the disappointment of my family, like it's hard, because for them, if you don't have a job and you don't work in some sort of big corporate, there's nothing is as good as this. Even if you have your own business, if you're making a lot more money, it doesn't matter. So, I think like letting go of that dream and sort of, learning to reclaim, who I am and, what I stand for, and just going through my path, which, even if I get married, I'll be an old bride, but that's fine.
Girl, you do not look old. You do not at all. You will still be a young
gray with a veil. So it's fine.
I think so. That it's so funny that was your answer, because that has been multiple women's answers.
Oh, really?
To different questions, but similar. It's like letting go of a timeline that they thought that they, expected to have. And I think when we're younger, we have this ideal of what our lives should look like, and we're going to be married by this age and 100%. This many kids by this age. 100%. And we feel disappointed in ourselves when we don't achieve that. But I feel like as women, we should feel, so proud of, and look at what you've created, Sarah, and you should feel so proud. And I think fuck the timeline. Your life is so much more fun. Look at everywhere you've been and traveled to and done. So.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. But it is true. I'm really happy now, but it really, you can go through dark places, for many years, until you have something. And obviously because I have Pinc and Pinc Bloom, yes, you feel accomplished, but I think having a fulfillment in your life, whether it's from work, personal, could be sports, is very, very important to have an outlet.
Oh, I could not agree more. Sarah, I think everyone could listen to your French accent all day, but where can everybody find you?
So online, obviously at pinkwellness.com, but I also have many stockists throughout Australia. And I'm launching in 6 weeks a telehealth platform for specialists in women's health. So
oh my gosh.
Anything from chronic pain, vaginal microbiome, STI testing, mental health, sexologists. We have a big array of health professionals who will listen to women, will listen to their pain, will listen to their problem. No one's going to be dismissed. So it's launching soon.
Oh my gosh, that is so needed. And there's a huge gap, because I feel bringing so many specialties together to help support women in such a sensitive area for people, in such a vulnerable area, is so needed. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait.
Yay.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Monique.